Hey guys, this is Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And in this episode, number 4, I had a very special guest, Mr. Charlie Valher from Outsourcing Angels, who's been crushing online for many, many years, has many businesses and has so much expertise in this area. And in this episode, we talk about mistakes we all make when buying websites. So guys, if you're looking to go away and investing in websites and buying businesses, this is absolutely key to go away and listen to, because there's so many mistakes that we make, and it's best to go away and leverage off people that have gone away and made many of those mistakes before you, so you don't have to do them yourself. So that'd be a really good episode if you're looking to go away and start investing in websites. So, hey guys, and welcome to the podcast. And today I'm talking with Mr. Charlie Valher from Outsourcing Angels, which he started about 4 years ago and now has already built it up to about 100 staff. And Charlie, welcome to the podcast again. And I also just wanted to pronounce your name correctly. And I kind of did it like Gary Vaynerchuk, how he says Gary Vaynerchuk. And I just got some inspiration from there.
I hope I roll with it.
I hope. Sorry?
I say we roll with it. That's how everyone can pronounce it from now on. Like the closer to Gary, the better.
Is it correct though, saying Valher?
Yeah, you're very close. It's Valher. So it's like everyone, 2 syllables, Valher we go with.
Perfect. Awesome. And so today, Charlie, you've gone away and bought some businesses. I bought some websites and we've got a portfolio of businesses we own. And I've learned a lot, and I've made many mistakes when I've gone away and bought websites. And I teach that to my clients as well. And I know that you've gone away and made some mistakes, and I think it's a juicy topic to cover. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. When I saw what we were going to be talking about on this episode, I was like, this is going to be a long episode. Because definitely has been a learning curve when it comes to buying websites. And there's some dangerous areas I think we all fall victim to.
Yeah, for sure. And thus it being a long episode, it's going to be very, very valuable because there's going to be so much we're going to need to put in here. Just for those that are listening, is like when they're going away and looking at buying websites, you guys can all learn from our mistakes, which is such an awesome deal.
It's the quick way. Trial and error is definitely, I just got to say, trial and error is for idiots. Leverage people that have done it.
I totally agree. And that's one of the biggest things that I tell people is like, you can go away and try and scrap together and run around and do it for years and years and years, or just, hire somebody that's done it before or listen to somebody who's done it before. But Charlie, I'm so keen and just want to jump straight in. What is one of the worst mistakes you've made, or some mistakes? Yeah. What's the worst mistake you reckon you've made when looking at buying a website?
Well, I'll start with the timing, which is something I know we've discussed off air, but I'll bring it on air. It's that at the moment, I'm actually currently looking to buy 2 websites. There's 2 that I'm very, very close to having over the line, one of which is the biggest purchase I've ever made. Normally, I tend to try and find sites that I can build up with me and my team. This is a much more established site that I suppose is well in 6-figure range, so it's quite a big purchase. Now, what's so awesome when it comes to like due diligence, which is the area I'm going to talk a little bit about more, is it's the same process. It wouldn't matter if I'm buying $1,000 site or $1 million site. I would run through the same process. There's just probably a lot more involved or much more depth in the $1 million site. But something I find, this is my biggest challenge, right? So this is the area where I make the mistake, is my bias is definitely something I have to be aware of. And I think this is probably the most dangerous area for everyone, is that we become biased to things and it really affects what could be good decision making. So I'll give a bit of an example here, but do you know what? I'll even give you the solution first. One of the best things you can do is just be aware of what your biases are and then treat those biases with awareness when you get into buying websites. So the mistake I make and have made in the past was that because my background is digital marketing and advertising, I tend to look at a business and value it based on what I can turn it into. So I look at it and I go, okay, if I run a campaign here and I do this, this is what I'll be able to get this business to. And why this is so dangerous for me is because I'm willing to often overpay based on where I can get a business to, instead of looking at a business for where it's currently at and valuing a business from where it's currently at. And in the past, I have overpaid, and then based on the work I've had to put in, even though I was able to get a result, my margin was severely diminished. And that was my huge kind of like big mistake from one. So being aware of the bias and then knowing how to treat it.
That's such a great one. And I think we touched on that in another episode, looking at a business where we're like, oh, I think I can go away and make this happen or build it up to this and completely be ignorant to other factors of the business. And that's one mistake that I want to add to, a mistake that I've realized so many people do. Like, almost when we first start out, especially buying websites, almost certainly we all do this. When we go away and see the returns, and the mistake that I've made and so many of my clients have made is that what we do is we sell ourselves into the business. And I heard something from somebody, I think it was last year, somebody that hasn't even bought a website or a business before, but somebody who was like a high level sort of executive in a business. And I was trying to make a decision in my life or in my business. And he said to me, with this, it's an investment, right? But what you need to do is you need to be able to sell yourself out of the investment. And if you can't sell yourself out of the investment, you must invest. And that's the biggest mistake that I see people do, is they go away and they get blinded by the numbers and figures and go, I can't wait to own this business and I'm going to make this amount of money per month and then I'm going to do this with my life. And they get really emotional about it and forget about the hard data and sell themselves into it rather than sell themselves out of it.
Oh, totally. And I love that point there. It's amazing how quickly we can fantasize about where our life's going to be when we're looking at making a purchase. It's like, oh yeah, I'm buying this site. The site might be, $100,000. And then like somehow we're envisioning like Lambos and mansions. Of like, that's where we're going to end up. And I know that's an exaggeration, but I'm sure you can feel me a little bit here on like, we somehow start to build this fantasy of like what it's going to be like in our lives when we make this website bigger or when we sell it or whatever the goal is.
Yeah, that makes me laugh, because when I first started speaking to a lot of people that wanted to jump on board with us, and a lot of my guys that speak to people that want to come in, and that we talk about what their actual goals are, right? That's the most important thing. And they're all like, they sort of see the returns that are being made and stuff, and they put the two and two together, and they're like, Lambos does come up. Like, I want to have this car and I want to have this place and all that sort of stuff. And it's a funny thing, because we do get super excited, and that's one of my mistakes as well that I make, that sometimes I get super excited about an opportunity, and that's something that I've learned from now, is to really be grounded in my approach to investing. And that's something that I offer a lot of people that are out there looking at buying websites or investing in anything, is to be more grounded. But that's a massive, massive thing that I've learned, not just in investing, but in my life. But Charlie, what's another one for you think?
So the bias is definitely my number one. I'll lean into that as much as possible. But if I had to come into like number two and say, what's the second thing I think is a huge mistake when buying a website, I'd have to say it's like not having rules on what makes a good investment for you. I think this is huge. I think it's very easy to use that word again, opportunistic, to see a site or a business or something and go, oh, I could make this great, or whatever it is. And then to not be able to look at it and have rules or a filter of like where you can apply strengths. So I'll give you an example again. Is like, for me, I've got Outsourcing Angels. So I've got a company of VA. So a strength area of me is I'm really good with building teams in the Philippines. I'm strong with systems, and I'm strong with digital marketing. Like, that is strength areas for me. So for me, let's say I'm just going to put it out there, an e-commerce business based on Melbourne that required some sort of creative flair. Like, that's absolutely not the right place for me to play. So even if the numbers are fantastic, if I don't filter a deal based on my strengths, and I don't get the leverage and strength areas I'm good at, then I know that it's going to be a bad deal, even if the price is fantastic based on me. So it could be the best deal ever price-wise, but without the leverage areas and filters and strength, horrible deal for me.
Yeah, that's so key, is to really know what our, how we can use what we already have and the knowledge that we already have. And you mentioned before that you really think you should have rules. There's something that I learned, I think it might have been my third business, in between buying my second business and my third business. I started to learn this, that having rules and an investment strategy was important. And now I use that, I teach that, but there's a certain set of guidelines that we create that's absolutely important to adhere to, because if we don't go to those guidelines and we get blinded by our bias or our emotions, then we certainly go away and buy something that's not right for us, even though we felt, and that's a key word, is we felt like it was at the time. And I kind of had a few things that I wanted to chat about on the podcast today, and Charlie wanted to hear a story that I had about one of the mistakes that I have seen happen quite often, and it's of domain ownership, right? Getting verification of the proof of a domain. And this is more particular when you're going away and investing, or when you start out investing, you don't really know how to verify if a website's good or not, especially on like exchange marketplaces and different places like those marketplaces where you can buy and sell websites quite quickly without having a listed broker. And I've noticed, and I've seen some horror stories from people that have gone away and bought something, but they paid for something that wasn't actually what they and they didn't get what they paid for in return, because the person who sold them this business, in inverted commas, didn't actually own the website or the domain. It was under somebody else, or they sold something that looked really good and they had a lot of details for it, but they went and bought something they couldn't actually obtain ownership of it. And that's such a scary thing to do. And it's such an easy thing to get domain verification from an owner. And that's one really big mistake that I've seen a lot of people make and heard some horror stories about.
I can't believe that's a thing. Because you mentioned this, I actually thought you were a little bit joking. Because I'm like, surely this can't be real.
It's happened.
But well, there you go.
It's definitely happened. And I think I've ran into this that's like one of the first lessons I learned when I was going around trying to teach myself how to do this website due diligence, when I was like, hang on, can you actually buy these things? Can you actually buy websites? Or are they just like what everybody's thinking right now, is like listening to us when they first find out, they're like, scam. Straight away, yep, it's a scam. If you're going to try and make money online or buy something online, it's a scam. And that's what I was ingrained with and brought up to believe. And that's what I thought. And as soon as I taught myself so much, I could really learn that it wasn't a scam. And everybody says you need to risk it to get the biscuit, Charlie. And I just think it's the dumbest thing to say, because I always like to tell people that all risk is minimized by education. So if you can go away and educate yourself enough on any subject or anything you want to go away and do, it just minimizes all the risk.
Totally. So, yeah, you kind of take those, like, you get a point there and a point here, but they really do add up. And as you said, like, getting verification of the ownership of the domain is not hard. It's really easy, but certainly can weed out any scams very, very quickly. So I really like that one, Jared.
Yeah, it's just a quick and simple one to do. So have you got any stories, should I say, Charlie, for us on mistakes that you've made? I love the stories.
Oh, you got to love the stories, Jared.
I do. I definitely do.
I got another one. Like, I guess, we'll look at one of the stories leaning into my points from here is like, once upon a time, I actually ended up in a business that was developing apps. This is when like the iPhone had just come out, and the app market was hot. Everyone wanted an app because it was seen as like, marketers kind of painted this picture that, apps was going to be like direct access to your clients, and you weren't going to have to pay for ads anymore if you could get people to download an app, and like push notifications were going to be the next big thing. I'm not sure anyone actually allows push notifications on their phone, but we'll pretend they do. And there was all these massive hype train built. Now, I had a marketing company at the time, and we were like lighting up. We were like, oh my God, this is like the next Google AdWords. We got to get on this. So we actually developed an app for a company. I'll leave names out of this. But unfortunately, what I got caught in this business is the person that was actually developing the app just basically took my money and made no app.
Wow.
Now, I ended up in a horrendous position of I'd paid the app developer and then had to refund the client we were building the app for. And that ended up probably the single most expensive day I think I've ever had in business.
Oh man, that's crazy. That is crazy. I've had a very similar thing happen to me where I was actually traveling and I made this, somebody contacted me and really wanted like a certain amount of product from my store. It was a drop shipping store. And what happened was I was just like, wow, this is too good to be true. It was I just looked at the profits and I went away and I got the person's credit card details and, crazy to me is that the order was so big, they had like a limit on their card. So they used like 2 different cards to buy this product. And I was like, awesome. And I went away and I didn't ship it internationally, right? Obviously, shipping's so expensive. So if somebody wants the product, and quite a lot of them, they're going to have to pay for their own shipping. So they went away and said, I said to them, look, you need your own shipping. So they went away and bought this shipping. And for what happened from there was I went away and I paid my, supplier. And then what happened was I was trying to contact the actual shipper and the shipper just wasn't, in contact with me anymore. And the client wasn't in contact with me anymore. Right. And so I had charged their card and made the money. And then I paid for the product and it was ready to get shipped, packaged up, all ready to go. And then the cards declined. Somebody had like reverse charged the cards. And I'm like, no way. And these were actually stolen cards. And I was lucky enough, I paid the shipping company a lot of money. I was lucky enough that the supplier refunded me back because they hadn't got picked up by the shipping company, but I lost a lot of money in that transaction as well. And it was just, there's some of those things that, people don't understand that you do get these blows when you're going away and being an entrepreneur, I guess, and investing and doing that sort of stuff.
They're never fun days. They're never ever fun days. And I actually suspect that most entrepreneurs have a similar story, or most business owners have a similar story. We all tend to get done hard once, and then we become smart enough to realize that we're not going to let those things happen to us again.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned one, I've mentioned one, and I've never put myself in that type of position again, where I was at so much risk. Without even realizing it, much like yourself, all I saw was what a fantastic deal I've just put together. And to be honest, if the guy could have built the app, it was a fantastic deal.
Yeah.
But it really, really hurt on that front, and certainly not a mistake I'm looking to make again. Yeah. So what about you, Jared? I've reeled off a few here. Have you got any things you think are really important? What are the big mistakes when buying a website from your point of view?
A massive mistake that people make is the opportunity to speak to the seller and have really good questions. So it's easy to go away and, a lot of people can analyze the business and get, Google Analytics and data and stuff like that. But they might want to jump on the phone and they have a quick little chat to just sort of get to know. They don't really know what questions to ask. And I've realized that in life, the better your questions are, the better the answers you get to life. It's the same when you go away and you jump, when you're frustrated and you want to solve a problem and you jump on Google, Charlie. You've had that happen to you, right?
Definitely.
And
all the time. Yeah. Today.
Exactly. It's a regular occurrence for all of us. And those times that you jump on Google and you try and type in a question to get your answer and you just can't get your answer. And the reason is because our questions freaking suck. And we actually don't get the answers we really want. Well, it's the same when you go away and do anything, right? You need to have better questions. And as soon as you start to change in that search bar the question and get a better question, then you start to get your answer and the real answer that you really want that's going to solve your problem. Well, it's the same when you go away and you invest in a website. You should be able to get really good questions that can give you so much insight and understanding into the investment you're going to go away and buy. And I think a lot of people fail to do that. And I think that's a massive mistake.
I agree with this so much that I wish I stole that answer. I mean, like, that is such a good point, Jared. Like, and I really agree with it a lot. And I've actually had an experience where the questions I asked actually led to the person wanting to sell the site to me. Because of how much interest I've had. I mean, the deal didn't work out, but it's like, it was just not a good deal for me at the time. Didn't pass some of my other filters. But it was so interesting how keen this person was to bend to me or have a bias towards me, because they could see that I actually had a caring for the business and actually had the ability to kind of, well, this person's asking these questions because they're actually going to do something with it. It's not going to be destroyed. It was fascinating.
Yeah, and I was pretty shocked with that when I first started. Like, when you really start getting good at asking questions and obtaining information, the person on the other end can be like, wow, this person really wants to take this and do something. And it's, if I put myself in their shoes, they're going, oh, wow, this is going to be a great person to sell to, because they know exactly what they want. They know exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, as opposed to all the other people that are just learning or starting out or just fumbling around trying to look to buy a business. But when you're educated and when you know how to do this, I mean, you can become, and this is something I teach, is how to become an attractive buyer. Have you heard of that before, Charlie? Attractive buyer?
I haven't, but I love the phrase. And I want to be an attractive buyer. But to dig deeper there, what would be like your top questions, or what you think are the most valuable questions in that process? Is there ones you go to every time, or do you do separate investigation and come up with custom questions?
Well, there's certainly a few key sorts of ones, but it's always based on what the business is doing, right? I think it's just really good to ask them some good ones. Is like, if you were to keep running this business and time and money wasn't a factor, what would you do to grow it? And that's one really good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, because then you can, and because they've got so much knowledge, right? Is really not just like being crazy skeptical of the business to make sure it's a good investment, but those questions based on how to get information and knowledge from the sellers of their business to utilize that for when you become the owner is so valuable. And if you can ask questions based on those, then you're going to come off winning, especially if it's a good investment. That's for sure. Yeah. So does that answer? That's one question. I mean, I could come up with a few, but mainly they're targeted to, depending on the business. Like, say you were to, like, a good question to ask is like, what are you doing now? And is it working well? And if it's not working well, why? And what could you do differently to make that work better?
See, that's another good one. I love those questions. I really do. And I think they're great ones to ask. A couple that have served me very well have been, do you have any other interests in this space? It's very interesting to see if someone's selling a site because they may be working on another site or another business in the niche.
Certainly. And then another one to add to that is like, is there something outside of this business that is driving something towards you getting value out of this business? Like, do they have another sort of traffic source, or are they doing something personally to build this business up that isn't shown in the data that you can collect when you go away and do your due diligence?
Totally. I think it's so wise to ask that one. And do you know what? If they are, the next question should be, can I continue getting that leverage? Can I buy links or traffic from you or whatever it is?
Always. And then add that question in of like, if I was to keep doing this, how could I do it differently to make it better as well? So Charlie, like, we could just keep going on with questions that we ask. Maybe that's another maybe that's certainly another podcast, I think.
I absolutely think we should do an episode just on that.
Yep. All right, I'm taking notes on that now. So let me ask you, mistakes that you believe are important for people to not go away and make, that could be an easy one for them to go away and trip up on when buying a website.
Yeah, look, I think another one is validating data. Right. I've read some really interesting like Flipper posts or whatever you want to call them, like listings on Flipper. And it's like some of the things they write, even in plugging their website into SimilarWeb or Ahrefs or a number of tools, you can see it's a lie, flat out lie.
Yep.
And I think that when you are looking at buying a site, the best thing you can do is get access to a Google Analytics and even know how to check their Google Analytics is accurate, but then also their financials. So seeing that the traffic matches the data, the financials match the traffic and transactions, and just bringing that all together so that you can be very sure that the numbers they've given you are actually real. Because you might make a decision based on a site earning X amount or having a certain amount of traffic you can leverage, and then come to realize that, oh, hang on, there's a heap of bot data in there, Google Analytics. Or actually, they accidentally double recorded revenue in certain months because of Stripe. And this stuff happens, and they may not even be aware of it.
Yeah.
And this is what makes it so dangerous, is like there's this whole segment of people that actually believe their business is doing a certain level and it's not.
Yeah, and it's a saddening thing for them as the owner to see that, especially when a well-versed investor comes along and points that out. They're like, oh, crap, I didn't even, I think we talked about this another time, when you're talking about the yoga studios, they actually didn't realize, sometimes they don't even realize, or they're unconscious of these things. And that's such a good point, is that cross-referencing, right, Charlie? Like cross-referencing the traffic to the amount of income it's making, and does it make sense? Something that's certainly that I completely forgot that I could have said that was a massive mistake. Something that I learned earlier, and sometimes you see that the income's really going really, really well, but there's like the traffic's just stable, and you're like, well, that's a red flag, right? Massive red flag.
Yeah, well, it could be legit. Like maybe they've gotten very good at email marketing, and that's where it's coming from. But it's like you would want to question that at the very least.
Yes, and have really good questions around it as well. Remember, like I said before, like the better your questions are, the better the answers are that you're going to get, and the more understanding. I want to add to that, because that's a mistake that I have picked up on, which is huge, Charlie, and something that I sort of struggle with on a business that I was telling you about when I did some financial due diligence for a business. It took me like a month to go away and really comprehend the finances, is that a lot of people go away and they look at the finances and they're like, okay, this is cool. And they can see screenshots of the finances, and they may even like get a screen share of the finances from the person. But what's really important is to get like viewers access of their business's bank accounts and the business's merchant accounts, and then cross-reference that from the screenshots or whatever, and make sure it matches up. Because even if the pennies don't match up, it can be quite drastic, because they might be doing something with the money, or there's something going with the financials. So I think cross-referencing finances isn't done very well by a lot of sellers, and I think that's a massive mistake.
Definitely, I'll agree with that again. I wish I stole that. Another win, Jared. I really like it. We're starting to become one mind as we do this, aligning our visions.
We're getting really good, because there's some that you've just belted out. I'm like, far out. Like, that's exactly right. That one where you're talking about the cross-referencing the traffic, stuff that I just completely forgot about. Yeah, I'm loving it. So many mistakes. Like, we make mistakes all day, every day in our lives, especially, it's going to translate to anything we do, especially when it comes to investing. So, Charlie, another mistake, another little mistake, and it doesn't have to be something that you've done, but something you could see is quite easy to make, because there's a lot of, first-time investors or people just coming up onto the podcast and going, oh, never really heard of this stuff. What should I be looking out for? Or is it legit, or is it real? And how can they stay safe, should I say?
Right, well, I'll do a quick recap here of what I think we've spoken about so far is we've gone, okay, like biases is definitely number one. Number two is that we've looked at, okay, filtering your deals. So, for me, I've mentioned it. I probably shouldn't buy like trade service businesses. Like online is good for me. So having a good filter, just because it's a good deal, it might be a bad deal for you, which makes it a bad deal.
Yep.
3, we've talked about verifying ownership. 4 is we've spoken about like the data, verifying and cross-referencing the data. 5, we've spoken about like planning great questions so that you can have really good information to make a decision. And then, is that all the ones we've covered so far?
I did talk about the one about selling ourselves. Oh no, that was a bias. That was pretty much under the same umbrella of our emotions and selling ourselves into an investment. So we'll cover that one under that one for sure.
Well, then the lucky last one from my point of view, lucky last for me, you may have more from here, is patience. Wow. I think this is the one that I think we need to lean into is that, I'm pretty hungry for a deal right now, Jared. I'm really hungry for a deal.
I know you are.
I'd be thrilled to close out these websites this week.
And you will soon.
Maybe. I'm trying to be patient here and open to the idea they may not work out. Because if I'm all in, that's a terrible way for me to run at the moment. But I think we totally have to be patient and cover the mentality or have the mindset of there's always another bus. There's always another site. There's always another business.
Always. There's so many opportunities out there. It's crazy. And people, if you've got a limiting mindset, you may have this emotion around like, I've got, this thing, I'm never going to find another one of these, which is not true, because all you need to do is educate yourself a little bit more and persist a little bit more, and you'll find more and better opportunities than that one that may not have worked out. And it didn't work out. And I say to people, like, I don't know if anybody's gone away and watched this case study of Sam that I posted last week. He's gone away and he's making $3,000 a month from his first business. And working with him, we looked at so many businesses and he sent me so much stuff and he got so close, like so many times, like certain things happen or somebody else came in and bid in the last 24 hours or whatever it is. And he came close so many times. And I kept saying to him, look, man, like it obviously wasn't meant to happen. And this deal that he just got done was like better than all the other deals because he just went away and kept persisting. And I think that's something that I need to learn from. And I'm going to add to that, Charlie, of like my last one being patience as well, because that's a massive thing that I'm working on in my life, is not just in investing, but is to really be patient and be solid and be grounded, to not go away and move based on emotions that aren't actually serving me at that time. So yeah, I think that's a wrap. I think we've done really, really well, Charlie.
Yeah, I like this list. I think it could help a lot of people that are in this space.
Awesome. So thanks so much, Charlie. Where are we going to go away and find you?
Look, the easiest place to find anything from me is, number one, to be in your community, Jared. So if you aren't in the community, get in the community, because you can tag me and I'll ask questions and whatnot. The other one is, like, if you want to see my projects or what I'm getting up to, you can head over to charlievelher.com, and I'm sure we'll put a link wherever this podcast episode is.
We certainly will. And I just want to say thanks so much, Charlie, because you've given some amazing answers in the community and everybody else in there definitely values you. So thank you so much. And thank you for being on the show. That's it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be chatting to you soon.